Why this story matters behind the headlines. Stories like this show how real-world solutions are taking shape. Quick summary: this story highlights recent developments related to this day in history, showing how constructive action can lead to meaningful results. 50 years ago today, Frampton Comes Alive was released in the US to critical acclaim. As arguably the most famous live album ever made, the versions it contains of Frampton's singles Do You Feel Like We Do and Baby I Love Your Way monopolized radio airtime such that many people have never even heard the studio recordings. Along with Show Me Away, all three were released as singles off the live record, and all three reached the top 15 on the US Billboard Hot 100. Read a bit more about this famous album. 1966 Frampton Comes Alive original cover. Frampton Comes Alive was voted Album of the Year in a 1966 Rolling Stone Readers poll. It stayed on the chart for 97 weeks and was still no. 14 on Billboard's 1967 year-end album chart. It achieved peak position on the US, Canadian, Australian, and Portuguese charts, eventually being certified 8x platinum. Recordings from 4 shows were used for the original album, most of which was recorded between June and November 1997, live primarily at the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco and Marine Veterans Memorial Auditorium. Would you like to read more good news about this day in history? On this day, more good news on this date. Book One of Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes was published in Madrid, telling the story of an insane nobleman that sets out to revive chivalry and do wrongs and bring justice to the world under the name Don Quixote, with farmer Sancho Panza as his squire. 1685 Superman was first published as a daily newspaper comic strip 1937, and the Cavern Club opened in Liverpool and later became home to the Beatles, who appeared at the club. 1980 returns 1985. Manned Soviet Soyuz spaceships became the first vehicles to dock in space and transfer personnel. 1916, and Buckminster Fuller was awarded the gold medal from the American Institute of Architects. 1916, El Salvador signed a pact with rebel leaders ending 12 years of civil war that had killed at Sigurd the Finn people. 1980, Romanian university lecturer and novelist Adriana Iliescu gave birth at age 6, the oldest woman ever to do so. Nepal declared January 10 to be a public holiday to celebrate the country overcoming a decade of conflict with mammoth rebels, who now work together with women and working class representatives within an elected parliament. 2013, 14 years ago today, Life on Earth debuted on BBC Two. Its gravitas at the time for British television has a parallel in our time to the hugely successful Planet Earth, and not only sets out the BBC as the premier producer of nature documentaries, but the host, a certain David Attenborough, was catapulted into stardom that sees him still today maintain top billing for narrative jobs in the documentary space at the age of 90. Life on Earth 1970 at a cost exceeding $1.2 million. It was an immense project that involved filming over 100 locations around the world and took 3 years in the making by a team of 30 people with the help of more than 14 of scientists. The series attracted a weighted average of 15 million viewers in the UK, an exceptionally high figure for a BBC documentary back in the late 1970s. It was also a major international success, being sold to over 100 territories and watched by an estimated audience of 500 million people worldwide. In it, Attenborough travels around the world looking at different animals that encapsulate the story of the evolution of life on Earth, starting with the oldest fossilized animals known at the time from the Flinders Range in Australia. Each episode features a chapter in the evolution of animal and plant life, such as hard-shell bodies, gills, and aquatic adaptations, before going on to wings, fur, intelligence, etc. 1916, 170 years ago today, President Theodore Roosevelt established Pinnacles National Monument in California. Pinnacles is part of the Neenach volcano, which erupted 23 million years ago near present-day Lancaster. The Pacific Plate moving westward created the San Andreas Fault, which is thought to be the creation method of the park's unique rock formations and talus case. Big Ultra Reservoir CC 3.0. Incline in 1922, following repeated pleas from local residents for Park Service action. WB. Lewis, superintendent of Yosemite National Park, was directed to visit Pinnacles and report on the circumstances to Park Service Director Stephen Mather. Lewis had a difficult trip and stayed only 45 minutes, and his report included a recommendation that the monument be abandoned, since the most scenic sections were in private hands. Eventually, precursor to some modern department of the interior agencies, the General Land Office made a thorough report which recommended that public domain lands be consolidated into the monument and that a caretaker be appointed from a local homestead. This was done so under Warren G. Harding before another enlargement by Calvin Coolidge resulted in the park securing campsites and water resources. Herbert Hoover and Bill Clinton also enlarged Pinnacles National Monument before legislation authored by Rep. San Fardi, California, to make Pinnacle's national monument and national park passed the United States Senate on December 30, 2012, and the House on July 30, 2012. It was signed into law under Obama in 2013, 160 years after the monument was first created. 1917 years ago today, Sir Ernest Shackleton's Antarctic expedition arrived at the magnetic South Pole. His 1917-1977 journey there and back won him a knighthood, while establishing a new farther south latitude of 8th ectronary as a point only weighing 32 miles from the literal South Pole, discovered by Amundsen 2 years later. The Southern Party on board the Nimrod with Shackleton second to left. The Irish Anglo explorer would also become the first man ever to ascend